Good morning and a very good day to everyone. Today I will be presenting the case study analysis, the impact of multilingualism on children language learning. This analysis is based on the research conducted by Melissa Cockley in 2012, which explore how children develop their language when they are exposed to multiple languages in their daily life. In today's globalization, multilingualism is becoming increasingly common. Many children growing up speaking more than one language at home, at school, and at their community. However, even when children are exposed to similar languages, they do not always develop those language in the same way. Some children may become dominant in one language while other is mixing their language or switch between them naturally. Therefore, this case study is important because it helps us to understand how multilingual children actually use the language, what factors influence their development, and how educators like us can better support them in the classroom. This case study focus on two children, Colby and Jack. So the analysis come from the case study by Melissa Copley that titled Language Dominant Preference and Awareness, a case study of two multilingual children in a bilingual community. This case study focuses on two multilingual children living in Barcelona, which first Jack 6 years old and Colby 7 years old. They are both exposed to four languages, which is English, Spanish, Catalan, and Chinese. Barcelona is a bilingual community where Catalan and Spanish are widely used, especially in school and social setting. Moving on to the Colby language environment. From Colby backgrounds, we know that his mother is a native English speaker from USA and his father is a native Spanish speaker and maternal grandparent is a native English speaker. So the early exposure of English language come from the mother and grandparents while the Spanish come directly from his father. Colby did expose to the Catalan language at early age, which is 1 year old to 2 years old and 5 months from his caregiver. But the exposure is very limited, and his Catalan language fully developed when he entered the preschool at the age 3. Colby also exposed to the Chinese language, and he started to learning that language at the age of 3 through 1 hour class per week. Colby grew up in strict one parent one language setting, OPOL, where his mother only speak English with him and he speak only Spanish with his father, and Catalan is used and learned at school through his friends and teacher. Over time, Catalan became his dominant language and he developed a strong person-language associations. This means he linked the specific language to specific person or context. Now, moving on to Czech language environment. Czech background, his mother is a native Spanish speaker come from Peru and his father is a native English speaker from UK. He is exposed to these two languages from birth, which is Spanish from his mother and English from his father. No Catalan is used at home. Catalan is mainly used and learned at school through friends and teacher. Jack's also exposed to Chinese language and has been learning it for 1 year, which is through 2 hour class per week. Jack also follow OPOL setting but in more flexible way, where the parents allow him to code switching, which often leads to language mixes during communication. Instead of strictly parent separating language, they allowed Jack to use whichever language he felt comfortable with at any time. As a result, Jack became more flexible in his language use, which he is able to switch between language easily and even mix them within the same sentences. However, despite being exposed to Catalan at school, English remained his dominant language. This is because he feels more confident and comfortable using English. So here we can already see that even though both children are exposed to similar languages, the way those languages are used at home leads to very different outcome. There are three main objectives from this report, which is one, analyzing how bilingual and multilingualism develop in the children. Second, understanding how language learner and learning context influence the acquisitions. Thirdly, is the examining how multilingual experience shape identity, communications, and learning. Research of objective and methodology. This case study aims to investigate how multilingual environment influence children language learning which is comparing to children with similar exposure but different outcome. Identify key factors such as home, school, and individual differences. Provide insight for teaching practices in multilingual classroom. The methodology in this study used secondary data from Melissa Cockley 2012. Data source includes naturalistic observations, semi-structured interview, questionnaires, oral narrative tests. This approach allows in-depth understanding of real-life language use and behavior. Now, I will explain what type of bilingualism demonstrated by Colby and Jack. First of all, Colby is considered a coordinate bilingual. This means that he learns each language in separate contexts and keeps them clearly separated in his mind. For example, he used English with his mother, Spanish with his father, and Catalan at school with his peers and teacher. He rarely mixed language, and this show a structured and organized way of learning language. On the other hand, Jack is compound bilingual. This means that he learns language in the same context and connects them together. He frequently mixes language, use code switching naturally. For instance, he even creates blended terms like Catalanglish, which means Catalan plus English, when he was describing how he used the language. This shows a more flexible and communicative approach to language use. The comparison between these two types of bilingualism highlight how different environment can shape the way children manage multiple language. Now, moving on to language contact. Language contact refer how language is presented, used, valued, or experienced by the child in their daily life. It includes not only exposure, but also status, attitude, proficiency, and relationship gaps between the language. In this case study, several key aspects of language contact strongly influence how Colby and Jack develop their multilingual ability. One of the dominant factor in language context that influence the development of multilingualism in these children are language status. Language status refer to the importance or dominance of a language in a particular environment, especially in school or society. In this case, Catalan has a high status because it is the main language of instruction in school. It is used for peer communication and it is part of the local community in Barcelona. Evident from the case, Colby states that the language that I more speak is Catalan because with all the kids I speak Catalan. This statement clearly shows that Colby used Catalan frequently in his daily interaction. His communication with peers happened mainly in Catalan. Although both children are exposed to the same school environment, Colby became Catalan dominant while Czech remained English dominant. This proved that language status is powerful, but not the only determining factors. Other elements such as identity, motivation, and attitude also shape the language outcome. Now moving on to another important factor is which is the language attitude. Language attitude refer to how the child feel about the language, including their confidence, preference, and emotional connections. When asked if you could only speak one language for the rest of your life, what would it be? Jack said in English because I'm really good at English. This statement shows Jack has a positive attitude toward English. He feels confident and successfully using it. Positive attitude can lead to the stronger use, and confident will will lead to language dominance. Because of this, he preferred to use English, and English remained his dominant language even though Catalan is widely used in school. This demonstrates that emotional factors like confidence and self-belief strongly influence language use. A child may choose a language based on comfort, not just exposure. Another factor is the knowledge of the second language. It refers to the child's ability to understand and use multiple languages, which may not always be equal. Evident from cases, Colby said, "Does a copa can you trade a copa for money?" Copa is a Spanish word. This sentence shows that Colby is using both English and Spanish in one sentence, which is the code switching. He understands the meaning of copa and even explains it's like a trophy. This demonstrates that he has a knowledge in both language but choose the word that is more accessible or familiar or easy for him. This example of code switching is a natural strategy used by multilingual children to help them communicate when one language is easier. This shows that multilingual knowledge is flexible, dynamic, and not always available. There is also example when Jack say Catalan when Jack say a term like few terms like Catalanglish, which is Catalan and English, Spanish language, because I don't know the word, indicates that he does not have full vocabulary in one language, so he need to use another language to continue the communication or the conversation. Next is the native language proficiency. This refers to how strong the child is in their first language. L1. Evident from cases, Colby said, "I don't know this thing" when he was asked about day of the week in English. They show that Colby lacks lots of vocabulary in English, even though English is his home language. At the same time, he know the day of the week in Catalan. This and become stronger, and the first language, English, may become weaker in certain area. Language proficiency depend on the usage and not just origin. Lastly, the language distance. Language distance refer to how similar or different language are. In these cases, English, Spanish, and Catalan are relatively similar language. Evident from Colby, "Can I just speak two because," and then what would happen is that I would have to speak in Catalan with daddy and he said casa, which is house in Spanish, and he doesn't say casa, which is house in Catalan. He says casa. Similar language make it easier to switch between them. This increase the likelihood of code switching. They show that language structure can influence how children use and mix the languages. Now, we go to learner context. Learner context refer to individual differences in the child, including their identity, goal, social influences, and home environment. First of all, identity. Colby used percentage to rate his language ability. like 20 or 30 or 40% for Chinese language, 100 for Spanish and Catalan language, and also 90 for English language. Explanation: Colby evaluates himself like a test score. He focuses on more on performance and accuracy. This show a very strong linguistic awareness. However, Jack developed self-concept as a language learner. He sees himself as a capable language user, which he is very confident and fluent in his English. When he was asked what if he can speak one language for the rest of his life, what language will he pick? So Jack picked English because I am really good at English. This explains that Jack expressed confidence in using language and he felt comfortable when using the language. Peer groups also influence how the multilingualism developed in the children, which where peers influence which language the children will use. Colby said, with all the kids, I speak Catalan. This explained that when he was with his friend, he used Catalan. So he used Catalan to communicate with his friend, and this increased his exposure and fluency to the Catalan language. Next, home support. Colby parents follow a strict opol, which is the language are clearly separated and allow a very minimum code switching. Parents and interviewer express lack of understanding when Colby is using code switching to encourage him to speak in one language only at one time. For example, Kobe said, Mami is Rafa Nada Primero en La Liga in Spanish. And the interviewer replied, I don't understand. And Colby replied back, is Rafa Nadal first in the league? Show that strict Opel is working for Colby. He he need an encouragement or the support from the parents to talk in the target language. When talk, in the other hand, for Jack, when talk about Chinese language, Jack say, in bed I say like I sing song in Chinese because in YouTube my mommy look for Chinese music for my telly so I have got YouTube. This shows strong support and encouragement from the parent in learning Chinese language because Jack's mother exposed him to interactive media like YouTube song to create fun and engaging learning to support the language learning. Lastly, role model. After some serious research on how to grow the multilingual children in their home, Colby parents decided to code mix as little as possible when they are talking to each other to present as role model to Colby, so they use all pose strictly when communicating. While Jack parents allow code switching and also demonstrate code switching at home. Next is the learning context. Learning context refers to how learning takes place, including interaction, motivation, and learning style. First of all, there are two types of motivation. There are two types of motivation. There are recognized in these two children, which is intrinsic motivation, which is learning because of the interest, and extrinsic motivation, which is learning because of the reward. Example from the case study, Colby often feel bored in Chinese class. He show low interest during normal lessons. However, he become highly motivated during exam because if he work hard and can answer the test for the high score, he will get the prize from the school. This shows that Colby is driven by extrinsic motivation, while Jack shows interest in learning language naturally. He enjoys learning Chinese language even without reward. He said that language is his favorite because it's fun to speak in Chinese. This shows that Jack is driven by intrinsic motivation. Next is the social interactions by Vygotsky. According to Lev Vygotsky, social interaction theory, children learn language through interaction with others. Language development happens through communication with peers, interaction in meaningful situations. For example, both children use Catalan at school. They learn through interaction with classmates and teachers. Zone of proximal development, which is ZPD, refer to the gap between what a child can do alone and what a child can do with help. Colby improved Catalan through the teacher and peer support, while Jack also learned Catalan through interaction but prefer English. Lastly, the learning style from Honey Mumford and Cobb. In Honey and Mumford, Colby are identified as theorists. This is because he prefers structure and rules uh, and separates language, which focus more on accuracy, while Jack is identified as activist and pragmatist because he learned through the interaction using the language in the real life situation, and he focused more on the communicating and meaning, which means as long as the meaning is received by the other party, it is okay to to make mistakes or code switching. In Cope learning cycle, Jack learned through experience and interactions indicates that the uses of language is active, which fits the concrete experience and active experimentations, while Colby thinks first and analyzes the language rules before he speaks in that language. This fits the reflective observations. That's all from me. Thank you.